Good morning, everybody. It is Friday the 21st, I think. I think it's the 21st. The 22nd, maybe. Well, it's November or something, so it's a week before, week before Thanksgiving, so it is what it is. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who's made comments about my wife and everything that we're going through right now. I really do appreciate it. It's, it is a stressful time. There's nothing really more you can really say about it. It is what it is. And, thankfully enough, we've kind of accepted what's going on, and, we talked about it for years, so this isn't kind of really more of a surprise. It just, we knew it was going to happen. We've done everything we can do, and now we're just going to do the best we can do right now. So with that kind of explains why I'm doing this video. What are the plans about LPJ design? Well, right now, the good news is that we just sent out chapters 1 through 5 to the donor levels of 50 and higher for Obsidian Apocalypse. A lot of people have been able to look at it, check it out, get a lot of the stuff, really enjoy it. We've gotten some good feedback. I think people are surprised, surprised how good it is. We had a lot of great people work on that. I mean, really, Rich Redmond did a lot of great work. Jeff Lee did a lot of great work. Owen Casey Stevens, Richard Pett, and really the person who's done probably the most work on this has been Joshua Yeardley. Joshua has done all the editing for this book, and this book came in like so many different pieces, and getting it really, it was massively disjointed. Since we had so many different people write it, he really got it to one unified voice, one unified feel, and I mean, he did an amazing job on this. I'm hoping to release the last 5 chapters, I think. 5 chapters over the whole Thanksgiving week holiday. But I'll be off next week. This is my last day in the job. Woo! I'll be off next week to relax. Well, So that's what we're doing on the Obsidian Apocalypse front. On Neo Exodus, I know that JP's been running a lot of adventures and writing up adventures and some ideas and concept for his First Ones Entertainment group. You can find it available at RPG Now. I know he's working on something he talked about. We haven't talked in a while because I've been going through all this. But he has an idea that he wanted to speed up combat and stuff like that. And it sounds interesting. So I'm like, hey, I can't wait to check that out. LPJ Design as a company. Well, we probably are not going to be releasing anything else for the rest of the year. The main focus of that being is that, I've got everything going on. I don't really want to think about putting things out at the same time. But with that said, let me actually say this. Starting in January, we're going to start returning back to our schedule. I have a couple ideas that I'm going to be giving to my guys, getting some feedback from them, because I've always talked about the one thing that I like and kind of dislike in this industry is there's so many good people doing good work. That's great. The problem is, the field of what people want to see is kind of narrow. I mean, there is for anyone to adopt a third-party publisher product, you usually have to say, is it balanced? That's usually the first question. Is it balanced? And most of us think it's kind of funny, especially the guys, doing third party for Pathfinder, because so many people who do third party for Pathfinder are freelancing at Paizo. So when people are like, is the stuff balanced? It's like, same guys working on it. Well, is it balanced? You're like, dude, still same guys working on it. But is it balanced? You're like, are you not understanding what the concept of working for the company? Is it balanced? And you're like, wow. So I think that issue of balance comes into play with a lot of things, just naturally for people. People want to make sure stuff's balanced, it's well written, it's well done. But I mean, let's be honest. The names that you see working on third-party products are working on Paizo products. I mean, the majority of them are. And the guys that aren't are usually being, mentored, schooled, instructed by the guys who are working for Paizo. So usually the quality doesn't wane from one extreme to another. There's a lot of people just doing good, innovative stuff who may or may not have worked for Paizo. It's just funny to me to see some people's resistance to third party because it says third party. And it's like, hey man, sometimes third party is better than stuff you've seen. I think the big, well, I'll say this. Yeah, I think some of it is. I mean, listen, there is no artificer for Paizo. We made Machine Smith. There's a couple other ones up. There's a Mecha Mage coming out from Thunderscape. You know, this is a class that is missing. I expect the class to be in the advanced class guide coming out, with the playtest coming out, which I actually read like 2 seconds of it. For all you people who are wondering, I've actually looked at 2 seconds worth of it, and that's about it. So I don't even know if it's any good or any bad. You know, I put a post up on my personal forum to Owen Casey Stevens, since I know Owen has done a lot of classes. How many of the classes that he did seem to wind up on that? You know, like I said, it's, you know, I personally think that these kind of books are good in the long term, in the sense that they provide a structure and a logical structure of why the things are built the way they are. A lot of people get upset with the advanced race guide. Is it advanced race guide? Yeah. I mean, we did one, you know, the Race Christian Cookbook. I've known from day one, the races are not balanced, and they never have, and they never will be. You know, elves and dwarves are immensely better than humans and half-orcs. That's just purely a numbers game, and I get that. That does not surprise me at all. And people screaming, well, the thing isn't balanced. It's like, dude, they'll never be balanced. They're not balanced races. They give you the perception of being balanced, but they're not balanced. Just can't happen. And this is, once again, a numbers game, you know. Half-orcs are not as balanced as dwarves. They don't just get as much cool stuff as dwarves get. Dwarves get a lot of cool stuff. Elves get the most of cool stuff. Half-elves, they do okay. Half-elves and humans, I always say, do okay, but they could get a little bit more and there wouldn't be a big deal. But that in itself is an issue, which I totally understand. I think there should be a perception of balance in the game. If there's a perception of balance, people shouldn't have a problem. And most stuff is a perceived balance. You know, that's not a problem. I think this class book will be another one of those perceived balances, and also I think will help teach people how to build classes correctly. And I think that's another story in itself. You know, I think some people like making classes because they have found a hole in the game. Here's a hole in the game. Let's make this class, like the Hellions that from Super Genius. Oh, is it now Rogue Genius? See, it's very you know, that damn Owen Casey Stevens. He's like 12 million people now. So I'm gonna guess that's maybe Rogue. We'll just call it Super Genius for now, because that's how I remember it. They did a class called the Hellion, and I'm willing to bet that class will be in this advanced book, and by a different name, but that type of class will be there because when he wrote it up, it made sense. I'll tell you one I'd like to see in there. The Spellless Ranger. I'd love to see a version of that in the book, which would be amazing, because that's a good class. A solid class, smart class. It's a class that makes sense. The White Necromancer might make it in there. It might be, you know, a variant of it, but or you know, inspired by. But I expect to see that. You know, Machine Smith. I don't know. Maybe not that book, but definitely for Iron Gods. They will definitely be a base class that works just like the Machine Smith. I have no doubt in my mind about that. And, you know, doesn't surprise me at all, and makes logical sense for Paizo. I don't see why they wouldn't do it. You know, it's kind of, why would you not? It makes a lot of sense. That's just me on that one. So, and so, one of the ideas I've been working on, so I'll tell people what I'm working on for January. I've always talked about the acceptance of third-party publishers by the masses. And I've approached it in different ways personally as a business guy. We did Adventure Path Iconics, which, you know, definitely was inspired by the stuff done by Legendary Games. They were doing Iconics, and they were very cool Iconics, because the Iconics for Pathfinder are kind of like generic Iconics. They need to be that kind of generic. But I think you can make cool Iconics. They can still be iconic. They don't have to be generic. You know? People are saying, well, don't they mean the same thing? Well, some people, you know, they assume that because you mean iconic, it must mean generic. You know, I think things can be unique and iconic, can't they? Can they? Let's talk about that later. But so what I did was, you know, we started the whole Adventure Path Iconics. So we give you 4 human characters and 4 Neo Exodus races, and we put them in the book so you can play. And they give you an opportunity to look at our characters from Neo Exodus. The most recent one we just did, Path of Undeath. We did that with all the races from Obsidian Apocalypse. So if you want totally different and unique horror races for your horror-based adventure path, these are the ones you should be picking up. These are radically different than most things you've seen out there. We built them for Obsidian Apocalypse, but they work in any horror setting because they're iconic. I guess the Khmer are iconic. I mean, sentient psionic blood parasites are kind of unique, but we have iconic versions of them in there, and you can play them. So, but like I said, I think there needs to be a crossover product and more of that kind of stuff. And with that, I've been developing an idea for the adventure paths, because what I don't want to do is build another add-on to the adventure. I think Legendary Games has already done that. I think they are specifically in the right place to do those kind of right products for them, and it makes more sense for them to do it. For us to do it, it really doesn't make sense. We don't have the same, I'd say, insight, enjoyment of doing that kind of thing than they do. That's really their focus. They're really good at that. They're done it very well. And that's a strong point for them. I don't begrudge them a second for that. But with that said, I don't want to do what they've done. I want to do something different that people can get excited about. What does that mean? Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure what that means. Well, I am, but I'm not telling you everything. I think you can do encounters that fit in very well with the adventure path, but you can do something that's, I consider, so obvious that I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet. So it's like, well, let's try it. So I'm going to be talking to Jeff and, who am I kidding? I'm talking to Jeff and probably JP, but definitely Jeff, about getting this idea worked in stone and moving around and getting a little more focused. Also, with that, watch it, car. You gotta speed up. Just gotta speed up. Also, with that, I think you're gonna see us do more generic stuff. I've been kicking around an idea of late, and I blame John Wick for this. This solo John Wick. John Wick did his Wicked Fantasy, where he basically gives you a different view of the basic races, and some not so basic, but he gives it a different spin and puts his stamp of craziness on it, which I think is lots of fun. And then I really thought about, well, couldn't we do the same thing but in a different way? All right, what does that mean? Because I see evolving the concepts. Because okay, look, I'm just going to talk about elves right now because elves are easiest. Elves is a concept I don't understand why elves aren't fae. To me, they're fae. I assume elves are fae. That's just an mindset I built. I know they're not, but I think they are. Oh, elves? Yeah, they're fae. They got to be fae. But no one's really written up that version of them as fae in a book. And elves in different cultures. How do they look? How do they look? They're elves, but they're not your traditional what you expect to see. European focused elves. They're a different view, and I think that would be a cool thing. I mean, I want to kind of evolution. I want to give you here's a version of an elf. Well, here's also another version of an elf, and here's another radically version of an elf. And the way it works is very much simple. We take the elf, you get the standard elf, get the background on it, very standard. This is why it is this way. This is what we feel. Blah blah. Well, here's some variations of it. Here's what an elf would look like if an elf was fae, and we give you that information background. We give you that stuff. Here's what an elf would be if it was from this type of world, and we give you that background. And then we go, and here's what an elf would be like from a very radical fantasy setting, and then we do those versions of elves and put that in there. And it's all about elves. This book's all about elves. You like elves? It's going to be in this book. You like some other cool stuff with elves? It's going to be in this book. You want cool feats for these elves? They'll be in this book. We're going to focus on really looking at the idea behind the elf, break it down to its core essence, and then rebuild it in a different way. I mean, I like doing that with stuff. I like looking at the idea and the concept of it and seeing how we can look at it a different way. I don't want to do what John Wick did, because that's what John Wick. We're going to do the exact same thing. It doesn't make any sense. I think what we want to do is really look at maybe some folklore, look at it from a, my personal favorite, a scientific aspect. As a very good friend and I were having a discussion last night about invisibility and, how does it really work and that kind of scenario. And as she was laughing about it, I thought it was hilarious, okay, this is a tangent, but it's kind of cool tangent. The comic book Planetary has an anagram for the Fantastic Four in it. One of the girls who plays, who's the Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman anagram, turns invisible, but she wears these goggles so she can see because, and it's kind of funny he says this, but the way he writes it, he goes, when Sue Storm turns invisible, well, she turns her entire body, transparent should be really the way. She turns her body transparent, light passes through her. Well, if light passes through her, it also passes through her optic nerve, meaning she can't see because she can't reflect light against something. Now, that I've always assumed was always handled in the concept of Sue Storm bends light and actually doesn't turn herself. She actually bends the light to coat her to make her appear invisible, or transparent, even though she is there. That's always the easiest way to handle that. But looking at it from the perspective of, hey, what about the science behind that? What about if she actually became transparent? What the issue would be there? What's going on if you go transparent? Lasers fire through you, boom. Well, laser's not going to work. Nothing reflect, goes right through you. There's all kinds of cool, things and ways that would affect. You fire a laser at somebody, if you're bending light, does the laser bounce off you? Does it rebound off you? Do you have to worry about it going through you? These are feasible situations. And then you add on top of her how she projects force fields, which is really kind of telekinesis. We don't call it telekinesis, we call it force fields. I still don't understand that one either. But whatever. It's a question. Those are reasonable questions to ask. And I think when you start asking those questions about fantasy races and really anything, you really get a different spin on stuff, and it makes it kind of cool. And it gives you, an expanded way of looking at the races. We made up the Khmer from Obsidian Apocalypse based on the concept of what if the living organism was actually the blood of the creature. That's the thing. Because every movie, vampire, horror, blood is a very main component. Always has, always will be. I saw something in Legion of Superheroes that they had, and this is a couple years back. This is because I have tons of comic books around me that are always old that I like to read and excited about. They did, I should have moved up earlier. They did a whole thing of Ra's al Ghul living in the 31st century. Now, if you don't know who Ra's al Ghul is, he's a very big Batman villain. If you saw the Batman movies, he uses the Lazarus Pit to regenerate. That's the quick overview. Well, basically in the 30th century, he got to the point where he used the pit. Is that better? Yeah. He'd use the pit so often that his body basically had disintegrated, and basically his blood was really all that was left of Ra's al Ghul. Well, before this went on, Ra's al Ghul figured out to do something really intelligent, which I thought was a genius. He made cloned bodies for himself. So basically, think of his cloned bodies as his suits, and the blood of the actual him. He puts on a new suit when he needs a new suit. Get it? And I thought, that would work great in a horror setting. And that's how the Khmer kind of came out of that. It's just taking something that, when you really, really think about it at its base level, how would it work in a fantasy setting? I think that is a very cool aspect that doesn't get done. I think people just go, it's magic, and keep moving. But if you really, look at it differently. Look at it really differently from the core concept. We've got, for New Exodus, we have the Primidians. They deal with language. But what does that really mean? They're specialists in language. Well, in a magic setting, language becomes very important. Because, with the right combination of letters and sounds, you can cast magic. Which is that changes a lot of stuff. With that said, these guys, are great communicators. So they understand language is like a weapon. And how can they use actual language as a weapon against people? And you think, you push it to the extreme, and I think you can get some really, really cool ideas. And that's what I'm trying to do with this kind of new race series that we're possibly doing. Look at things you'd expect, but push it even more to the extreme. Push it, beyond the boundaries of what you'd expect. I think there's a lot of good ideas that are still out there. that haven't been mined out of stuff that people are like, oh, I'm tired of seeing elves. Well, how about this kind of elf? You ever thought about an elf like this? Based on the psychology of what you know about elves, based on what you've read about elves, based on what they've been telling you about elves, what if you took that to the farthest extreme? What kind of elf would you have when you had this? I think people would be like, whoa, wow, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So, like I said, we've got lots of crazy plans. One of my coworkers beat me here. It's one of those scenarios of, how'd you beat me here? We've got a lot of cool ideas coming out. This is going to be, 2014, I'm hoping to start off a good year. I'm sure, with everything going on with my wife, it may not be as nice as I wanted, but crap, that's in there. Got my tea in my other hand. What I'll say is this, is that I'm very thankful for having such a fantastic wife who put up with me over these 13 years. And I'm really glad I have the opportunity of having her in my life. She's fantastic. And if you've got someone you care about or someone you're thinking about that you want to bring in your life but you're not sure, just take it from me. We only got to be married for less than 6 years. And we knew each other for 14 years. I spent 8 years going around her and not being there when I could have been. And I will always regret that. So, don't be like me. Don't be stupid. If you found someone you like and they like you, go spend time with them. Tell them you love them. Because that's important. You all have a good day. Talk to you later.